Chim Chim True, gamers, and welcome to this evening's GS2, the only show where the hosts are the true NPCs. I am Steven, and also known as generic Townie NPC 1. And with me tonight, we have some great people on this episode, webisode, whatever this is. First is our Grand Pastor Dame, also known as Undercover Cleric NPC 1. How are you this evening, Dame?
Ready to give out quests and epic loots.
I always just considered you a cleric. I don't know why. You just always seem like one to me.
Fits.
It does it.
Yeah.
And this week we have a super special guest back from his newly busied schedule. We have our hardware editor, Chris, also known as the NPC hardware editor, Chris. 'Cause that's, I guess when you're a hardware editor, it's the same thing. Yeah.
It's like the world's worst NPC in the world. It's like your quest is to write 1,200 words on a keyboard. And your reward is a keyboard.
He's just the guy that's in the back of like the engineer's shop that's just like scrawling notes down and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty good. I mean, you can get like special keyboards and hardware and hand it out to the general other NPC population. I think it's
Now, would that be considered a trinket or would that be considered a weapon?
It depends on its make. I have some keyboards that could be considered weapons. If they're made out of metal, they are deadly weapons. They're epics, is what they are.
Like the Rocats.
No, not like the Rocats. I have a 5-pound hunk of metal with some keys on the top downstairs, my friend. If anyone ever robs my house, you know what I'm going for.
I think that it's
Homeboy doesn't need a baseball bat.
But it's downstairs and you sleep upstairs, so you're going to run through them to get the keyboard.
Well, I think we've kind of gone past all this. Right now we're talking about using keyboards as weapons, and I don't know if that's where we should be going in this conversation, but I'm guessing if our NPC hardware editor does think of keyboards as weapons, he probably sleeps with one under his pillow just in case. Just has one ready at all times.
The last time I was on here, I think I was up to 30-something keyboards, right? Yeah. Okay, let me tell you, I am up to about 45 now. Seriously.
You need to make the throne already. You need to make the throne of keyboards already.
I think
could.
I'm at 4.
I think you just need some shelving in the back, so whenever you stream, you can show all the keyboards in that you have.
Dame, now listen, Dame, we're all married men here, right?
Yes.
Right. We have women in our lives. How would your wives react if you wanted to decorate a whole wall in keyboards? Let me tell you. This NPC is not the dungeon boss. I am the NPC. There is a raid boss that lives in my house. She is not down for the keyboards.
Oh well.
Hey, you know what? I may be the NPC cleric, but I can't heal stupid. So.
Well, lastly, we have a man. We have a Bowman. Bowman, the last minute NPC. He just kind of showed up out of nowhere. How are you doing, Bowman?
I'm NPCing it up like there's no tomorrow.
Awesome.
He plays a hunter.
Normally, 95% of the time, I play as a hunter class because I like Legolas.
That's the only reason you need, I guess.
That's the only reason you need.
Yeah.
I was going to make a joke. I was going to say, so did your parents. And then I realized your parents had the same last name. So you predate Legolas with the Bowman thing, man.
Really weird. Well,
hey, yeah, true story. When I was at camp with the archery stuff, I was ranked Bowman. So
Bowman, the Bowman. So you're the Fletcher NPC is basically what it is.
Yes.
All right, fantastic.
I am.
Next week I'll have my quiver.
You should always have one. So let's get into the show. It's this week's news is a little bit light, but we also have an interesting topic to kick off this evening's show with. A few weeks back, Dame and I, that sounds weird, but we kind of got into a little conversation over a report that came out from Superdata, which has since been corroborated by the entire gaming industry pretty much, where they describe the Fortnite effect and what Fortnite as a whole has done for battle royale games, the genre, and just gaming as a whole. So we have a lot to cover here, and I think we have the right guys to do it. So to get you all on board, I'm going to throw some information out there and just let you guys chew on it. And hopefully all three of you are hungry. It's a lot.
Serve it up, brother.
The Battle Royale genre didn't start with Fortnite. Does that freak you out to know such things? Because we had DayZ, we had H1Z1, and then who could forget PUBG, right, guys?
Who could forget PUBG 1,413 hours later?
They of course, they tried to slow the rise of Epic's Fortnite with their lawsuit, which didn't really pan out very well. But Fortnite broke through by number one, being free to play from the jump, which is really big. Two, having a very age-appropriate graphics that appealed to a wide spectrum of gamers. And three, being able to run on most everything from a NASA space rover to a potato. It quickly catapulted to the top of one of the most played games and one of the most streamed games, with a tallied 600 million hours of Fortnite watched in the month of May of this year, which is a lot of Fortnite to watch. The immense growth of these Battle Royale games has made companies from EA to Activision salivate with new Battle Royale games that they're planning on launching, and new Battle Royale games launch almost weekly as it becomes quite possibly the most popular genre of gaming of all time. So now it's time to pass it on to you guys. Let's get your takes on what you think about this.
Enter the cricket sounds. I think that Bowman should actually lead this off, because Bowman, I think both Bowman and Chris are both pretty big Battle Royale players, right?
I'm like the Battle Royale guy now, according to Susie. So
you are the big, not according to Susie. I think after you crossed the 1,000-hour mark, you just became the Battle Royale guy. When Chris goes to work every day, he tries to kill all of his coworkers.
But considering I'm not working right now, my work is killing people in Battle Royales.
Touche.
But yeah, Fortnite. I don't know. A lot of people like it. The whole building thing, just, it doesn't get me.
See, but it's not a question of whether or not you like it. Obviously, you don't like it, Mr. PUBG. 20 million hours played. We're talking about in the sense of what Epic has done. I mean, obviously, it's Epic because Fortnite has kind of worked its way into pretty much everything. Every company wants a piece of the Battle Royale pie, whereas before, Battle Royale was just kind of like a niche. It wasn't like something that people were really interested in. Obviously, you started playing it, but you've got three people on with you right now, Bowman, that are not completely enamored with the Battle Royale thing, and yet we still see Battle Royale games like Fortnite being like top of the chart on pretty much every console, mobile, pretty much everywhere. So Fortnite did something. What did it do? Why?
I have a theory on this. And my theory is that Fortnite is the game that made video games okay to talk about playing. When you look at the Ninja phenomenon that happened this last year. Now, Ninja's been around for a while. He's a professional Halo player, has been in competitive gaming for quite some time. But then you look at this one singular moment that happened where Ninja and Drake get together and play, and you have this person that has been a competitive player, as well as somebody who is in the pop culture arena and music, and suddenly you have this bridge that's gapped between two entirely seemingly juxtapositioned things. You have gaming, which while it has been a part of our culture for a while, has probably been seen as a little bit more niche. Now, all of us here have been gamers for a while, so we probably wouldn't think necessarily of ourselves as being niche. But when you have something like that happens, there's something that takes place in the culture of like, okay, now this kind of crosses some bridges here. Now this thing that I've been doing suddenly is a little bit broader accepted, and and maybe a thing that it's okay to talk about now because Drake plays Fortnite, and suddenly everybody's watching Ninja, and everybody's a thing. So I think that there's a little bit of a cultural connection to this too. That this is one of the first times, and moving even forward with the Ninja analogy. Here's the first guy that's been a professional gamer that was featured on the cover of ESPN. And so I think that we're seeing a little bit of a cultural shift that Fortnite kind of finds itself at the hinging point of it. Well, it may not be the only thing that's tipped it over into video games being a little bit more in vogue. But I think the Battle Royale thing is definitely benefited from not only Fortnite, but also all of the games that kind of came before it and built a little bit of a foundation. Epic just kind of took the ball and went crazy with it.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing I would add to that is that Fortnite managed, I think because of what you're talking about, Damien, to jump over into the life of children, honestly. Yes. Like that makes such a huge difference. I had open house at my class last night, and I've been dealing with this thing where the kids do not want to stop doing Fortnite dances all the time. I've literally had to tell the kids they are not allowed to go into the back of the room in front of the windows to the hallway and do the floss or do the whatever the.
Oh my God! I was just gonna say my son flosses, and he's not even touched the game.
Yeah,
he picks up kids at school. He's just
and then these little whippersnappers have the audacity to tell me that I can't floss when I try to do it for them. Well, let me tell you, they're right. I can't floss. But
even my dentist tells me I can't floss. So what's going on here?
In all seriousness, though, certain things they're able to make the jump over to the zeitgeist, and I think part of it is celebrity, and part of it is just being approachable for kids, because one thing that PUBG is not is kid friendly. Right. So I mean, if you look at this just from like a wider perspective, like just take it right out of the realm of like battle royales, you have lots of parents out there that have their kids on YouTube, right? It's the babysitter nowadays, and kids, they want to grow up and be YouTubers. So when parents see their kids watching something like PUBG, they're seeing a lot more graphic violence that they can identify. When they see their kids watching Fortnite, they see a cartoony, colorful-looking game where people are doing silly dances that their kids want to do and be cute at afterwards. So, and when that happens, word of mouth just takes off. Like, it was Minecraft a few years ago, right? And the same thing happened then, and it took over the world. So, I think that's a big part of it, is just how approachable is it from a family perspective. And the irony here, I had to tell a kid this today because I busted him on YouTube in my class. Now he's 8 years old. He's watching a streamer play Fortnite, and he's doing this on the sly. And I had to have the conversation like, no, you may not watch Fortnite in class, even during free time, because let's get real, kids. This is a game about killing other people, and lots of them. It's just, but parents don't see that. Kids don't really recognize that in the reality of what it is. So it becomes just a much more approachable thing.
Yeah.
Well, I think that there's also we've got a couple of comments in the in Twitch here about just some of the monetary things with which, by the way, hi Kiwi. We have some of the monetary things, like some of the prize pools for competitions and stuff like that. But and I think it's been mentioned here already that just the accessibility of it, with it being free, there's not that buy-in of, okay, you pay X number of dollars for the thing. It's accessible. It can run on a toaster, and then you have, like Chris said as well, with the art direction of the game as well. Yeah, really, really interesting point here that Kiwi just put up here, and I wrote a news article about this a little while ago. That not only are there parents paying $20 per hour for Fortnite tutors, there are also games now that are being created to hone people's skills at battle royale games, and so this is it's very, very interesting to see like the impact that this is having. But I think it starts with the accessibility to it. Because when you have like widespread accessibility to something like that, yeah, you're going to have much more buy-in, and then you have the saturation of an industry with that as well. From like Chris said, with YouTube and Twitch and even just merchandise all over the place. It is absolutely wild to see that, but it's not the first time that we've seen that phenomena.
Exactly.
I've seen some of those ads on Fiverr.
Yeah, and we've had conversations about this in the past before, in our episode on violence in video games, when we talked a little bit about the Five Nights at Freddy's phenomenon. And Chris is in education. My wife is an educator as well, and so like it's in the forefront of kids' minds, and some of that comes back to those parental interactions of like, okay, what's appropriate for your kids at what age, what are the values in your home, etc., and how do those inform the media choices that you guys make as a result of that. But when you have something that looks cartoony and plays cartoony and is just kind of hilarious like that, okay, yeah, it's juvenile fun. What's not to love, about your first grader or third grader playing the thing.
Well, I think you brought up an interesting point, and let me take you guys back to the beginning of the MMO times.
We need like one of those time vortex sound effects.
Yeah, I really should be playing that. But
you say as I wear one of my Doctor Who T-shirts.
So market saturation is a big part of popular games, obviously. But going back, there was. What's happening with Fortnite right now is a genre-defining effect. It's defining the entire battle royale genre that was pretty much, I'd say, not non-existent, but not popular at all. But there was another game that did that, which was World of Warcraft. And I mean, we saw studio after studio retool their efforts to make the next breakaway World of Warcraft hit, and it changed the genre entirely of MMOs for at least a decade. And
forever. The word you're looking for is forever.
People are still trying to be the next Warcraft.
People are still trying to do it, but they're not trying to replicate exactly what World of Warcraft did, which is what we saw time and time again, that they would start out with a game. Let's take the comparison between Star Wars Galaxies, whenever it launched, and then after they did the NGE.
You're about to break Bowman's heart with that.
Yeah.
Then Star Wars Galaxies came out first.
Exactly. It came out first.
And then,
but
World of Warcraft came out, and then Sony's like, ooh, we want to do that.
Exactly.
There
and then
goes the
Old Republic kind of picked up from that point where it left off, because they couldn't match World of Warcraft pound for pound. They wanted something more updated, and then they killed it. I mean, they didn't kill, the Old Republic. Obviously, that's still a thing. But, nobody has replicated that success, and nobody has replicated Fortnite's success as new games release weekly. I mean, new Battle Royale games are like weekly now that we're seeing. So should game companies still be chasing that pony is the question.
No. Absolutely not.
No, but I will say that Ring of Elysium just came out recently. That's also free, and that's within the first 2 weeks already since it came out. It's already reached 1 million players. So
this
that's going up pretty quick.
So this is a new game, different. This is the same thing, different day, right. And this goes even further back than World of Warcraft, I would argue, because go back to 2001. Halo Combat Evolved releases. Okay. Now, I understand. I'm going to lay a foundation here. Full disclosure, big Bungie fan here. Okay.
Like you didn't
know. But how many games were talked about from that point on as being quote unquote Halo killers? Okay, you have Crysis, Haze, Killzone. I mean, you can go on and on and on. The same thing has gone for World of Warcraft as well. You have games like Aeon, Rift, the Star Wars: The Old Republic. You had just again, innumerable studios have chased this the golden snitch, if you will, to use the Harry Potter Quidditch analogy here. They've chased this golden snitch of, if I can just get this thing, then we can be the next big thing. Chris, I want to ask you why you said no, because I've done a lot of talking here. I want to hear your reason for no on this.
Essentially, because I think the genre has peaked. Like realistically, so if I can rewind just a little bit, Dak, you had said something that right. You had said that the genre wasn't popular before, and it was. And your analogy toward MMOs, I think, is really apt, because MMOs were also popular before World of Warcraft. Yes, it just takes one game to kind of catapult it to going from a popular thing within a niche. And I would say PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds was incredibly popular, but it did not explode the same way Fortnite did. Right. But that said, you're seeing all of these companies trying to jump on the bandwagon, and I don't think companies should go after it anymore, because realistically, anyone that's trying to develop a battle royale game now is so behind the eight ball. Yeah. You will see so many more games fail for every one success that you actually have, because let's say a dev starts making a battle royale game tomorrow. It'll be 2 years before that thing is ever out, and by then, how many other games are going to come out that will make it look dated by that point, or make it look like it's not fresh and exciting? But the thing is, like in chat, somebody had mentioned that there are corners to the battle royale market that could still be like staked out by these other games. But just like MMOs, I think it's going to take games differentiating, like the whole thing where you're going to go and have 100 players on a big map, and you're just going to essentially copy PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds. Like, guess what? Call of Duty's doing it. They're going to win it. You're not going to beat it, so you probably shouldn't try. It's kind of
I was going to say Black Ops Battle Royale during beta was, oh my goodness.
Yeah, I wonder how many games are going to empty out into that, though. This is, and I think this is the voracious nature of games like this. They cannibalize each other, and this is why I say no. I say no. We don't need any more battle royales because. Because one, again, Chris, I really appreciate everything that you just said. I 100% agree with all that. I think it's peaked. I don't think the genre is going anywhere, and I don't think it should go anywhere. Like as far as going away, there's a place for it here within gaming. But we have this tendency, I think, as gamers to devour new content. Whether it's new content in an MMO, new content as far as games go, and we're fickle. We'll move on to the next thing that's the next big thing, and then all of these other games empty out into one another, and it just kind of becomes this cyclical thing. There's actually this running joke in my house because I am. I've played World of Warcraft for several years. It's ebbed and flowed as far as my commitment to the game and my investment within it. My wife still plays, and it's one of those things that we get to do together in gaming. But the running joke is that you're always going to cycle back. You know, there's always that time when you cycle back to the old thing. The problem with the format of battle royales, especially when you're trying to put 100 or so players into an arena, is that you're going to have games that are sparsely populated as soon as the spark runs out for the genre. Like I said, I think that there's space for it. I think that, obviously, Bowman, you've spent over 1,000 hours in pub. Okay, so 1,400 hours in PUBG. There's something there that you enjoy, and that's awesome. It's
different
awesome.
Every time, and that's what gets it for me. Is you can drop in the same spot every single time, and I usually do. but it's different every time. One time you could be completely by yourself, and you get all this great loot. The next time you can have 5 people with you, and there's no loot for anybody, so you're all just sitting there punching each other in the face, trying to knock each other out. Yeah. So, Battle Royales are different every single game. It doesn't matter how often you play it.
Well,
it's going to be different every time.
That right there is the key thing. Like, we went from having these be individual games to being its own genre, which I think is a good thing. It's a really compelling style of game. So we're going to continue to see them releasing. I guess my overarching thought is it is just becoming oversaturated.
Exactly.
So we're going to see this big swell of games continuing to come out for a while because realistically speaking, a couple years ago when people saw PlayerUnknown, all these devs are like, we need a piece of that pie, and started developing their games. So just why you're seeing more of them come out right now. Right. Once we get through that cycle, it's going to ease off a little bit. And then hopefully, like, what I would actually like to see is to see Battle Royale become a mode in different kinds of games.
Right.
Rather than
like
having...
Black Ops.
Like Black Ops, right? Rather than having it be its own standalone thing, where now there's 100 games that are all doing the same thing.
That was kind of what Fortnite was supposed to start out like, though. I mean, they started out with a whole PvE experience before they did that you paid for, and then they released the Battle Royale-ness.
Do you know what Fortnite really was? The whole thing that we have now, it was a, dear God, please don't let us go out and have to shut down this game. Please play this thing.
Yeah.
Fortnite was a Hail Mary, is what it was.
Yeah.
And it was a very successful Hail Mary, but realistically, that's what it was.
Very true. Well, another one that kind of broke through in a different way was League of Legends. That on the MOBA scene, same story. No MOBAs have really touched it thus far, and a lot have tried. They're just all different flavors, and over the past month, actually, it's pretty interesting because World of Warcraft released its newest expansion, and it overtook League of Legends on the PC as far as revenue goes, which is a really big thing. But essentially, when we get into genre-defining games, it's much less about the Fortnite effect, I think, personally, and more about the Highlander effect of there can be only one. There's only one, MOBA that broke through. There's only one MMO that's really broken through. There's only one Battle Royale game that's really broken through.
See, I would disagree on the MOBA standpoint because you had Dota 2, you had League of Legends, and Heroes of the Storm, which have kind of been the big three that have kind of taken the genre and are running with it. Arguably, League is the biggest of those, but
I like Force Arena on the cell phone.
Well, that's for different reasons, though. Yeah.
So can I just share something though? It's just funny when we're talking about World of Warcraft overtaking League of Legends, because at this point it's kind of like two old men fighting at a nursing home.
Yeah,
that's true.
Come here, Shunny. I'm gonna get you a Dish King, you
whippersnapper. You better just chill out, sassafras.
Been around since longer than you have.
I used to walk uphill in the snow.
World of Warcraft got a new hip and is ready to kick ass. That is what happened.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, in a way,
I'm sorry. That's the way my mind works. When you're talking about these, I just go to this random image of two old men fist fighting.
I mean, they are old.
I'm sorry to
games.
derail.
But
we got the Rock'em Sock'em old guys.
But Destiny was kind of a breakout hit as a shared world shooter, Dame. But there has been kind of an ebb and flow of its popularity.
Absolutely.
And with the Division also kind of working alongside it as a shared world shooter that became popular and then kind of had the same kind of ebb and flow. And there's so many genres that haven't seen their breakout hits in the same manner, and that have been around for a long time. I mean, you can kind of say there have been games that have done really well, but in terms of a meteoric rise that transcends time and space as they ride their rainbow unicorn into their infinite piles of money, we haven't really seen that a lot of times for certain games like Destiny and shared world shooters. So why do you think that is? And more importantly, will we see big breakout stars in other genres that are already established?
I mean, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say the thing that you're all expecting me to say, and that is that I really do think that this latest expansion with Destiny 2, Forsaken, is going to see some of that. I mean, they've got a lot of things right with that. I mean, we're 3 weeks in, and the end game, there's still more end game content that has been funneling out every week. The end game zone, the Dreaming City, has been changing every week with new quests and new adventures and stuff like that. I am obviously I'm super hyped about the game because I'm thoroughly enjoying it. But I think that that this may be a defining moment for the Destiny series when it comes to being a shared world shooter and being something that helps define what that genre is going to be. It's still kind of in its infancy, I guess. With the Division and Destiny kind of taking that ball and running with it, but I think that it's something that's going to be getting better. But I am very pleased with where Destiny 2 Forsaken is as it comes to that. But you all expected me to say that in any way.
I think it's pretty interesting because whenever you're talking about Destiny and shared world shooters, we're kind of talking about a game that's already been established. Destiny 2 did very well. It did. But it obviously could have done better. It has room to grow, but we established games reaching that high point like Fortnite did, which, like Chris was saying, it's kind of a Hail Mary here. They kind of threw out the Battle Royale. I don't think they realized that it was going to get as popular as it did. But we've seen games that have kind of risen somewhat meteorically and then kind of fallen by the wayside, but it obviously could pop back up. Like Pokemon Go was one of those where it's kind of fallen a bit in popularity. Now it's like the third most popular mobile game for the past few months, but there could be a new resurgence of playing Pokemon Go with the new Pokemon games coming out for Switch. Pokemon Go wasn't the first game of its kind, nor was it the last. There's dozens of AR geographically centric games, but in the way people felt that whenever I played Pokemon Go, I felt that the gameplay was holding me back a little bit in the sense that there was only so much that I could do. It was a lot of collect. But now when Nintendo's releasing Let's Go Pikachu, Let's Go Eevee, it's finally bringing a complete experience to what you already had in Pokemon Go.
Steven, you have to leave the house to be able to play Pokemon Go, right?
Exactly. Well, you can leave the house with your Switch. That's the best part. Yep. You can just put it in your pocket and take it with you.
So I live on a street that has Pokemon all around my house. I just have to go out for the stops.
So you've been collecting, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
You definitely should collect. But are we going to see maybe a big resurgence? Can a game like Pokemon Go find that meteoric rise again now that they're adding something to it? Kind of like how the Battle Royale genre did for Fortnite, as it was PvE centric, that, a game that wasn't very popular, up to, adding this other component that made it very, very popular.
Other genres could certainly have takeoff successes. Pokemon Go, see, I have a theory about video games. I think any video game that makes people actively exercise has a glass ceiling. So Pokemon Go, I think, may have booms. I don't think that's ever going to be quite what it was. Because eventually people realize, man, I would just rather be on my couch right now. I know that sounds terrible, but I think that's true. So here's the thing for me. I hate real life games because I don't want to have to drive somewhere to play it.
Right.
So that's one thing with me. But the thing that was really cool about that was they had an innovative idea that capitalized on something people loved. And we could certainly see that repeat in other ways that are out there. And Pokemon Go, make no mistake, is, like I said, is still very popular. Yeah. I think that it's somewhat of an anomaly how that happened. That's based on 20 years of Let's Go Pikachu. You know what I think? I think would be amazing is if they bring over that Pokemon game from Japan where Pikachu is a detective and he's voiced like a real guy.
Detective Pikachu.
But he has to be voiced by Danny DeVito, though.
English not easy.
It was so creepy to hear a grown man's voice coming out of that little electric mouse, but I also kind of loved it. Like maybe that would be
we got some clues over here.
I would play.
Hey,
I would definitely
Squirtle.
play it.
Look, I'm gonna get you a little wet. Squirt, squirt.
That's not creepy at all.
No.
This is G-rated, right? PG.
Look at my nozzle.
It's funny. It's funny that we bring up Pokemon Go waning, because in the city that I live, it's monstrous how active the city is in Pokemon Go. There are sections of town that you can go to that are just always packed with people that are doing gym activities and whatnot. But I've gone out a couple of times. It's a blast to go meet people and catch Pokemon together. I hate the raids, but my RNG with the raids is awful though. So
yeah, our town here, the courthouse is like the main spot for everybody because there's a couple stops there, and then there's like 4 or 5 churches around in a circle, and you can literally walk around the block and hit 10 stops, and you can go to 5 different gyms, and you can see people all doing it all at the same time. So you're all standing here in a little group like, oh, I got that one, don't catch it, I got that one.
Well, listen here, you city slickers. Some of us have to drive a long ways to play that Pokemon Go, and maybe it's not worth it to get a Squirtle. That's all I'm saying.
Well, you could come hang out with some of us who are within 20 minutes of you, and we can all have a family
That
day.
still takes driving.
The ironic part here.
Yeah.
I live way closer to a city, and I'm in a college town, whereas Chris is actually far more rural, and yet he has a way easier time to play this game. What's up with that, Niantic? Jeez.
And I will walk from my house because the courthouse is about 2 miles, I think, from my house. I can just jump down to the canal and walk all the way down there.
This picture of Bowman just diving into a river. I'm getting Pokemon today.
Magikarp.
The sad truth is, with all the water from the canal, there's no Pokemon along this entire canal bank. So I'm sitting here like, oh, okay, great. But me and Anakin will walk. We'll go to the courthouse. We'll have a great time. We'll walk in a block. Like when Pokemon Go came out, I lost 10 pounds.
That's
and
awesome.
I need to get back out to Pokemon Go.
And
because
that is very helpful. Yeah, to have games that get you out and make you active, right? But
there was something really cool too about like when Pokemon Go first hit, like just walking around and taking part in this thing, like, and you could just look around and see so many other people playing the same thing. Like it was more of a communal gaming experience than I think I've ever had. Like, it was neat just to, like, it sounds weird, but just to walk around the town where I used to live when Pokemon Go first launched, and honest to goodness, you see a dozen people that are all sitting there with their phones out like this, and you know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
It was neat. It was like being in on launch day of a new MMO.
Well, they have so many different flavors of it now.
Cars doing it.
Yeah, they kind of tried to stop that too, but
no, I mean when they're like sitting on the side of the road because they don't want to get out of the car. They're just like, you see 3 people in the car, they're all going like this with their phones. You're like, well, I know what they're doing.
Well, I think we've kind of run the whole gamut on this one. We've kind of covered a little bit of everything, and we still have some news to hit before the show ends, which we've fallen off the path of the Fortnite effect. We pretty much spent half the time talking about Pokemon right now. And,
you had to bring up Pikachu.
Yeah, Chris is squirting and all that. So we're going to kind of move away from that a little bit because we do have some news that we want to hit before the end of the show. Some very important news.
It's out of my control. Sometimes it just happens.
James has a brand new computer.
Well, we already talked about that a little bit. Yeah. But here's some big news. Bethesda announces that Fallout 76 beta is going to hit on Xbox first on October 23rd. But the PC and PlayStation 4 players will have to wait to October 30th to get into their betas. Players that want to get in must pre-order the game ahead of time, and I think everyone's going to kind of want to get into it a little bit early because you're going to need to get that practice in before the November 14th launch. So how do you guys feel about that? You guys going to pre-order it? You guys going to pre-order? You're not going to pre-order? I'm going to probably end up pre-ordering it.
So actually, there's kind of an interesting an aside from the dates for the beta, and that is that Bethesda also announced on Twitter that they're doing some limited invite stress tests to get ready for that as well. So,
do you know the dates on that?
I know they have not they've not made any dates official as far as that goes, but yeah. So I mean they kind of posted it on Twitter with the Samuel L. Jackson gif from Jurassic Park of "Hold on to your butts."
Yeah.
So
hold on to your butts.
So it's going to be a thing sometime soon. But I'm sure
and it's sad that he got killed in that movie because he'd been great in all the rest of them.
It had to be done. It had to be done. He gets killed in too many movies, honestly.
Question for you. So, Fallout 76. This is a game I knew I was going to play, so I kind of stopped paying attention to it. It's
right.
Just kind of how I roll with that to keep it fresh. Is the beta going to run for like a handful of days ahead of time, or is it going to run right up until launch? Because my understanding was they're not going to wipe after the beta. So really, beta is kind of a soft launch.
I do not know. I don't know.
Maybe that's not out there yet.
What's the release date?
November 14th.
Yeah, it's mid-November. That's a long.
No, they said the end of October, didn't they, for the beta?
That's when it starts at the end of October. But the game doesn't. They haven't said anything about that. I've read that they're stopping the beta at a certain point, and I haven't heard that there won't be a wipe either. Now, if there's not a wipe, then yeah, this is basically a soft launch.
So I may be mixing that up with one of like the Founders Pack things because again I've been a little detached, but there was something I thought it was the beta where there was not going to be a wipe with it. So essentially, you're playing the full game. Actually, I'm pretty sure that's what this was, where you're playing the full game and you're just kind of like getting a head start, which would make sense because like if you look at this like an MMO, which in many ways it is, and they're taking their experience from Elder Scrolls Online and putting it in here, they're going to want to be spreading their player base out a little bit so that way on launch day, they're not just going to have an overwhelming number of people all within a small area on each server. Like they're going to want to be making a good impression for performance. So if they're spreading people around a bit, that would make sense. Also, realistically speaking, for a game like this, I could see why they might wipe it if they find some catastrophic bug. But on the other hand, this is Bethesda. This is a massive company. And given that there's only like a 3-week window if you're on Xbox One between the beta and the launch, they're not going to be making any profound changes to the game in that window. So you're essentially going to be getting the finished product there, and then they're going to be doing tweaking.
Well, I mean, the only reason why I would say no to that one is because what Dame said, where he said that they're talking about doing stress testing, and if they're going to be doing stress testing at the same time as the pre-order betas, then what you're looking at is there's going to be a time whenever pre-orders and stress testers are all going to be on at the same time. And then how is that really going to work in terms of do the stress testers keep their accounts?
So I don't think so. I don't think the stress testers are going to keep their accounts because I would imagine that the stress test is probably going to take place before the beta does. Because they've hyped the beta up to be kind of the, break everything, test all the stuff and things sort of event. And it's been kind of the incentive to get people into pre-ordering the game,
right?
To be able to jump into it early. Yeah, that's okay. What I
have information here. So what I'm remembering was from right around the time we found out about the game. So this is on the 4th of July, actually. Todd Howard had said he hopes there won't be a beta wipe. So the actual quote says they're hoping to have multiple phases, and their hope is that the beta is the final phase and that they will be able to avoid resetting the servers. So it's not a sure thing. And apparently it's not confirmed. So at this point it's up in the air, but I guess they would like that to be the case. They also said below level 5 you can't be killed. So again, that would lead me to think they want to spread those people out a little bit.
Invincible!
That's it.
Okay.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to be level 4. I am going to go for the biggest, baddest boss, and I am just going to one-hit point whittle that guy down.
I'll be right there with you.
Yeah. Bring it on, Deathclaw.
I'm actually very excited for the game, but we'll see how things go. I probably will end up pre-ordering it because that's just me. Well, here's some other news because we're kind of running out here. We talked about we did a report on it last week. We kind of talked about it a little bit. We plugged it. But I'm going to do it again because it's not every day we have Chris here. But, it would be kind of weird if we had him here every day because this is a weekly show, so he'd be very lonely most days because no one else would be here.
I got fired from my job for this.
But we talked about his review of the NVIDIA 2080 series of graphics cards. So I think that we need to touch on it a little bit and get some firsthand reports because I know there are a lot of people that want to know about it. We've all just kind of made like our own assumptions about it without getting to touch it and lick it and all that. So,
he slept with share them. That I did that. That was a private picture, Steven.
The first night he had them in the boxes. He's like, "Oh, I can't wait to plug you in."
Yeah.
So there's truth to what Chris is saying right now, honestly, because I sent him a picture where I had opened the box and my hand was there, and it may have looked like I was caressing these video cards, but I was not caressing the video cards. Thank you very much.
He said, "Tell anybody you die."
So your question is, I guess, my opinion on them, like where I would land on it.
Yeah. I mean, let's say that I'm Dame over here, who has 2 very good graphics cards. Should he be wanting a third one right now? Should he be trading up for it? I guess is the question.
Well, so a part of that would come down to how much you could drive the price down on these because they are very expensive. And when you actually look into how they function, it starts to make a little more sense why they would be more expensive. But a lot of RTX right now is based on the promise of what's to come.
Right.
So unless you're sold on the technology behind it, and have faith in NVIDIA to actually bring all of this stuff about, I would say it's probably a safer bet to wait. That said, what I don't think has gotten enough attention in the media and in the general conversation surrounding these cards is that the way that they've constructed the actual processors inside of them is very different from how they've done it in the past.
Right.
So we've heard a lot about having the Tensor core, which is the AI core, but they also have the RTX core that's in there, as well as your standard, like, I forget the name of it. It's like the shading core. So it handles like all of the prior stuff. So without getting too technical, the way that they've done things this time is rather than having the whole thing dedicated to creating the graphics you see, they have the tasks of the GPU broken into 3 parts, and they call that hybrid rendering. So to kind of put that in a nutshell, what that does is it takes a lot of the strain off of these cards and off of your CPU, and it allows them to do more than they've done before. So in practical terms, down the line, like ray tracing is the big one, but what I believe we're going to see out of this is developers taking advantage of it to give unique features to RTX owners. So, for example, one of the demos that they had us do is called Asteroids. So in this demo, you're just a starship, you're flying through an asteroid belt, right? But it's giving you a counter of all of the asteroids it has on there, and it's actually rendering something like mine got up to, I think, 330,000 asteroids that it was rendering at one time. So one of the selling points here is because of the way they're breaking up the processing and taking it off of your CPU, they can put way more on screen. So when it reminded me of when Diablo 3 came out. Do you remember how the big selling point was way more enemies that you could kill at any one time?
Yeah.
So what if, in 6 months' time, a year's time, we're starting to see games where now, if you have an RTX card, you're actually capable of getting like extra content in a game, like within a level of a game like that, or like
I think
probably
really tough to do.
It would be tough to do because not everyone's going to have it.
Exactly.
But for optional things, like in terms of just the level of detail on a level, like having more objects, right? So like your actual scene, the thing you're seeing, you could have a way more detailed scene with one of these cards that has nothing to do with the actual rendering of the image as we used to think about it. So the other thing that they have is called DLSS, which is a really cool thing that's at this point not in many games, but essentially what it does is it does anti-aliasing, but it uses a neural network to do it.
Right.
Which is really cool. So it'll take a picture of like whatever scene you're looking at. It'll send it down into the neural network, take half of the pixels, and then use AI to fill in the other half. So essentially, like people are reducing this to downscaling. So essentially, it'll take a 4K picture, scale it down to 1440p, and use AI to fill in the blanks to make it 4K again. So it is downscaling, but it's not downscaling. But what it does is it lets you have a really, really crisp 4K image at essentially a 1440p performance cost, which is amazing when you actually think about it. Yeah. So that is a huge selling point for this. The caveat to that is NVIDIA has to actually enable that per game. I have faith in them to be able to do that because they continually add SLI profiles, and that it's just part of what they roll out in driver updates. So I think that's going to be there. And then when you add ray tracing on top of it, there's just way more going on. So expensive now. I do think they're going to fulfill the promises, but if you don't have the extra money, I don't necessarily think you should go out and buy one right away. Awesome. Like on the top end, you'll get around 30% of an actual performance boost in today's games at 4K. But they will let you do 4K 60 fairly easily, which is really cool.
Awesome. So just to break it down, what Chris is saying basically is suck on that, Dame's cards. You're not going to be buying that anytime soon.
But, one of the things I really appreciate is that, Chris, I really appreciate your ability to be able to break down the terms of what the thing actually does. If you're at all interested in tech stuff, you really should read his whole breakdown on the 20 series cards over at MMORPG. Really, really good stuff. But I can't help but go to the Terminator quote of "My CPU is a neural net processor, a computer."
And it actually is.
I'm not saying NVIDIA is who created the Terminators.
Yeah. When I came in the room today, I was looking in my case, and it was the weirdest thing. It was almost like an arm, like shifted back down inside of my GPU. AI inside. Confirmed. Yeah,
it's NVIDIA net.
Yep, very close.
Darn you, Jensen!
So
the end of the world started with a leather jacket, guys.
Last week, Dame, last week was Turmoil Week. It was. We had a lot of stuff going on, a lot of bad juju happening. But this week we have a little bit more to speak on that. So Club Penguin Island, a game that was a follow-up to Disney's popular Club Penguin, which we all know that Bowman loves him some penguins. They have shut down. The reasons for the shutdown and layoffs were due to global competition. And yes, global competition has ramped up quite a bit across all genres with no signs of slowing. But I'm not particularly a big fan of Club Penguin because I haven't played it. But this global competition thing sounds pretty harsh.
This is where we cut to the Willy Wonka boat scene.
Yeah, obviously. Well, you guys have kids. Did you guys have any that played any of the Club Penguin stuff? Anything? Is this going to affect them?
Never touched it.
Yeah.
Club Penguin was like 10 years ago. It's amazing that they survived as long as they did.
Well,
like realistically, honestly, my little sister played it when she was like 13 years old, and she's 21 now.
Wow. So I mean, they had a good run. You can't really complain. The thing is a lot of the people who worked there said it was they were blindsided because of, even apart from Club Penguin Island, which was another addition to it, they were also working on an unnamed title, and so they're no longer doing that. So I'm not sure what that other title was, but
Club Seals.
It could be. That does not. I don't know if that's a good idea.
That's a different kind of game there, Chris.
Yeah.
It's M-rated.
That's a VR game, right?
They've realized that the 13-year-olds are now 21, and they're going for the dark, gritty vibe now.
Yep.
Well, didn't Club Penguin kind of turn in that direction as well? I mean, wasn't it kind of like the Mos Eisley of video games? Like, there's no greater hive of scum and villainy than Club Penguin.
I have no idea. My knowledge of Club Penguin was the cartoon penguin that was kind of cute on the outside.
Which is
that's about all I know.
That was the entire game, was just that penguin. So
I never even touched it myself, so
which is really weird for Bowman to not touch a penguin game. Lastly, not sure.
It's really weird for Bowman not to touch a penguin.
Exactly.
Speaking of getting graphic,
it's why they won't let him at the zoo anymore. No more Bowmans at the zoo. So this one, I don't think this hit the MMORPG news space, and maybe you guys have seen it, maybe you haven't. If it has, then you guys can follow up on there. But Mortal Online, it's been a game that's been out for a little bit. I wouldn't say that it was a fantastic game. I wouldn't say it's a popular game, but it did have a lot of people who got involved with it, and hundreds of thousands of players' passwords were stolen and sold, while no credit card information was supposedly taken. This is important because if you happen to use the same password information across multiple games, and you were a Mortal Online account holder, you may want to consider changing your passwords in other games. So far, many of the passwords have already been attempted on League of Legends accounts, and I would expect Fortnite as well, because that's kind of the big hit. And we've already gotten into the reasons why Fortnite's been such a big thing and why people are trying to get into those accounts. So
do it now. Get to the password changer.
So if you have a Mortal Online account, I would say you might want to change your passwords in other games if you've kind of gone back and forth with the same password information.
It's not a hacked password.
I don't think I have to worry about this one.
I'm just trying to think, because I actually did try Mortal Online, but this was a long time ago. This was when Darkfall Online had first come out. So this probably, it's got to be 5 or 6 years ago now. Yeah. More, maybe?
Back when your password was 12345, and you've changed it since then.
Oh, well, my password used to be, please God, don't hack me. And then that failed me. No, that game had a ton of promise, because they actually had a lot of players initially, because so many people were really interested in Darkfall and were dissatisfied with what Darkfall was doing, that Mortal Online sold a lot of those players on that. And actually, they may still be doing okay, because Darkfall Online, fun fact, was sponsored by the government of the country of Greece, and they stopped funding that game, and that's why that game should.
Because they have no money.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
because of Darkfall Online, it was a lot of funding for that one.
Yeah. You know what? My greatest memory of that game, logging in, and it was so fit the stereotype, which isn't a fair stereotype, by the way, but it did fit the stereotype of immature, abusive PvP community kind of, because when I first logged into that game, one of its selling points was that it had penises in it, and that sounds really weird, but it was true. So you would log in and you would just be accosted as a new player with naked dudes jumping and ball physics and everything flapping around. Honestly, that was what you logged into in that game, is dudes, naked guys jumping around in your face. And sure enough, it's not that great. And if I recall correctly, also they had collisions. So if they surrounded you, you were stuck in a circle of naked men.
So kind of like Conan.
Yeah.
Well, that's the perfect welcome home for some people, I guess. But maybe not what everyone's into.
Tell you what, Squirtle's into it.
Yeah, maybe so. So
he's like, come
Hey,
get my
guys.
Squirtle.
well,
Yeah.
Little water.
Apologize.
You look parched.
we're running a little bit
James
over, so let's
shaving
get
us.
to the plugs and what we're playing and all that. Chris, you've been a busy guy. Let's start with you. What do you got going on? What should people be checking out?
Oh, so I just, as luck would have it, I'm on kind of a headset run. So we're looking at the new Turtle Beach Elite Pro 2. Cooler Master has an under embargo thingy that I'm going to be looking at. And then Audio Technica sent over a broadcast headset for streaming and podcasting, which is cool. The big thing, though, coming up shortly is I'm going to be looking at 2080 Ti's in SLI and how that scales up. So I'm kind of excited about that because they have a new connector on it. So it's not just your standard SLI bridge anymore. It's called NVLink. And from what I'm hearing, it actually scales quite a bit better than the 10 series did. So that will come sometime within the next probably 2 weeks, I would guess. So that's my docket.
But it's not quite the same NV link that's on the Volta cards, though. Correct.
Well, it's NVLink, right? So it is the same thing, but it's running SLI. So
Okay.
it is the same thing, but it's not running the same thing.
Just gonna give a shout out to all the people out there that are saying that they're getting that they're getting a lot of hack attempts on their Roblox accounts. I think that does surprise me a little bit, but Roblox accounts, huh?
Thankfully, I haven't had that issue. My son plays Roblox all the time.
Yeah, I mean that's just something to keep an eye out for if everyone's out there who have Roblox accounts. I definitely had attempts on my Fortnite account, but nothing.
Recently, I had to change my Epic password because somebody tried to log in from Romania and change my password.
It's worth noting, since we were talking about hacking, and I promise I won't derail this, but who was it in chat? Jeff over on our YouTube chat did point out that both NCIX had all of their customer data compromised. So if you've ever used NCIX, you're going to want to change your login information and possibly change your credit card, because that was all on their servers unencrypted. Newegg also had a piece of malicious code injected into their checkout thing. So if you've used Newegg, you're going to want to keep quite an eye on it. Now, this was in a window of, I think, August and September, so it's fairly recent, I believe. Definitely check on that. And then Facebook, it was announced today, recently had like 50 million accounts compromised too. So the point being, everybody is hacked, and we all need to change our passwords.
Pretty much so.
And make sure they're not the same as your luggage. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah, obviously. Bowman, while we're talking about luggage, why don't you tell us what you got going on?
Working on a few desk reviews.
Nice.
Don't know, Chris, is any of this embargoed?
No.
Okay,
Go ahead.
so I'm working on a review for the Arazi Arena desk, the full-size one. And I'm also working on a review for the new Arazi Ligero desk, which is a smaller... It's a scaled-down version for people who live in tight spots who still want a good gaming desk.
It's cool.
So I'm working on those currently. I just did a Cooler Master RGB mousepad review, which is up on MMORPG.com. Pretty good. Dual-sided mousepad. One's got like a fabric on it. The other side's sandblasted aluminum. One's for speed, one's for control. So those are pretty cool. Other than that... I've got a game that just came out today that I've had for a couple days I'm reviewing called Deliver Us the Moon, Fortuna. It's like an interactive game where it has some spots where they're only first person, some spots that are third person, but basically you're on Earth in the future and basically you get all your power from the moon. Okay. And then the moon stops sending you power, and you have to go up and investigate. So pretty interactive. Between me and the moon. Pretty interactive. Within the first 10 minutes of the game, you're learning how to actually flip all the switches and turn the knobs and things like that in the cockpit of your space shuttle that you're taking up to the station. So pretty fun. Be looking for that review probably in the next couple days to a week.
You and Steven should talk about those gaming desks. Honest to goodness, it would be an interesting topic on here to talk about how many things get the name get the gaming stamp on them, and whether or not they are actually gaming.
Yeah.
Because you did a gaming desk, Steven, and Chris, you're doing a couple. I just reviewed a gaming router that's going up. It's just interesting how many things are actually gaming or just sold to gamers.
Yeah. Well,
that marketing. Gaming tag gets them an extra couple $100.
At least.
Only if it has RGB.
Well,
you know what?
Yeah, that's part of it.
RGB, I would be blowing up on my review like, this is the best RGB desk ever.
And the only one, maybe.
The only one.
Well, no, there's a lot of them.
There's an ergonomics desk that I was looking at on. It was an ad that popped up on Facebook, but that actually has some RGB built into the sides of it.
I don't know how I feel about that. But Dame, talk to me. What's on the list this week?
I'll tell you what, this week I think is the week that a bunch of the hardware reviews hit for the the PC project. So Kiwi has been asking all show, what is on the chair? And I'm so glad that somebody has finally caught on that I've been Easter egging this entire time with the chair.
You tease.
I know.
He's just like, I'm going to set this here and you guys can drool the entire show.
So up on MMORPG right now is the review for Gigabit's Aorus X470 Gaming 7 Wi-Fi motherboard. It's an AM4 motherboard that I had the privilege of reviewing. Fantastic motherboard, especially if you're going to be getting into things like overclocking and like really detailed system tuning. It's an enthusiast grade board, so not exactly for everyone. I mean, the price point is in the $230 range. So it is definitely a boutique board. So if you want to pay boutique bucks for it, then there's an interesting motherboard. The box on top is a Viper's RGB RAM kit. So it's a 3200 megahertz RAM kit, 16 gigabytes. That review is going to be going up sometime in the near future, as well as for Patriot's Scorch M.2 drive. But on there right now, you can find the review for NZXT's H500 mid-tower case. The thing is gorgeous.
It's affordable too.
It is, and the
price is great on that thing.
It's affordable too. I think that's the thing that blows me away, is that there is zero compromise on the quality and the aesthetic. And if you're looking for a PC case that is just kind of simple and clean, but gives you the shot of your internal components, it really is a neat case to work within. The only problem that I had is I kind of have big mitts, so it was kind of tough to wrangle an ATX size board within the thing. Though it does have pegs, or it does have the spacing for mini ATX and micro ITX and mini ATX as well.
That's what the wife's hands are for.
So
she put this in.
She actually wasn't around when I built. Otherwise, I would have asked. But anyway, so I mean, those are kind of the hardware things that are going on. I have a potential future thing that's coming up in the near future that has something to do with something that we talked about today on our podcast. But I'm not going to tell you what that is. You're going to have to figure it out, and you'll hear about it in a future episode.
Yeah, no doubt. Mm-hmm. No doubt we will, extensively. Excellent. Well, for me, I'm going to plug a few things. Our latest episode of the Hero Signal releases this Sunday. It's our third episode, and I rant hard on Iron Fist Season 2. So if you're a superhero fan, pop over and grab that podcast this Sunday. See if you agree with my assessment, because I go off.
I haven't watched it.
Well, then obviously don't don't get the spoilers. It's a very spoilerific episode, so it tells you everything that's going on, and then also gets very angry about everything that's going on. I'd also like to say the Game Space Game Show. Hey, that's what you're listening to right now. That's what you're watching right now. If you have some time on your commute, if you're bored at work and don't feel like reading what's going on in gaming, our past several episodes have been really well received and a great place to start. So you can find us on Stitcher, TuneIn, Apple Podcasts, all the podcasts, everywhere. We are there. We are everywhere. So definitely get out and do that. And that is pretty much all I'm going to plug. Well, I guess I'll plug one more thing. My latest article on Guild Wars 2, where I talk about returning players to Guild Wars 2. That's on MMORPG.com right now. Talks about itemization. And itemization is kind of a big thing in Guild Wars 2 because there are a million items. And you might want to know what to do with them. Yeah, Dame just flipped out entirely whenever he logged in for the first time in years. He did not know what was going on. He
what is happening here?
Yeah.
I did.
That's how I felt after being off of Lord of the Rings Online for a year, and then I jumped back in and they changed everything. It's like, I gotta start new characters. I can't play this from the middle.
I jumped back into Lord of the Rings Online, and I was just shocked at how terrible those character models look. It doesn't have to be a whole conversation, but, oh, man.
Some things just don't age well.
That is true.
Which is why there's a new Lord of the Rings game coming out.
Yes.
Spoilers! But it's a prequel, I guess. So.
But that's a story for a different time, and I think that's it for this week. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and we will see everybody next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye.